Plassey gave the company a kingdom. Bengal, one of the richest regions on earth, was now theirs to command. What they did with that power would become one of history's darkest chapters. For 8 years after Plassey, the company rules through puppets. Mir Jafar proves too weak, too resented, too unable to deliver the revenue Clive promised London. His treasury is nearly empty. His authority barely extends past his own palace walls. The company loses patience and replaces him with another compliant noble, Mir Qasim. Each new Nawab hands over more silver, more territory, more concessions, in exchange for a crown that means less every year. The company squeezes harder with every transition, and every transition teaches Bengal's nobility the same lesson. The throne now belongs to whoever the merchants in Calcutta prefer. Mir Qasim, unlike his predecessor, has a mission. He moves his capital away from company eyes, builds an independent army trained in modern European tactics with the help of deserters and mercenaries, and tries to curb the abuses of company traders who exploit duty-free trading privileges to undercut local merchants throughout his territory, driving honest Bengali businessmen into ruin. It is not enough. In 1764, tired of being drained dry and undermined at every turn, Mir Qasim allies with the fading Mughal emperor and the Nawab of neighbouring Awadh, and marches against the company. The combined army is large. The company's forces are not. It does not matter. At the Battle of Buxar, company forces built on discipline, training, and superior artillery shatter the coalition in a matter of hours. The defeat changes everything. The Mughal emperor, Shah Alam II, humbled and desperate for any kind of settlement, offers the company something no merchant company has ever held in India before: the Diwani. Signed in 1765, the Diwani grants the East India Company the legal right to collect land revenue across Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, 3 of the wealthiest provinces on the subcontinent, home to roughly 20 million people. Robert Clive, back in India for one final term, calls it a triumph. In a letter to a friend, he estimates the annual revenue at over £2 million, astronomical money for a trading company that once begged permission to build a single warehouse on a foreign shore. But the Diwani creates something strange: a government with 2 heads. The Nawab, still technically ruler, keeps nominal responsibility for law, order, and justice. The company takes the money, revenue collection, tax policy, the treasury itself, all company business now, run by merchants with no training in governance and no long-term stake in the land they are extracting from. Actual administration, the unglamorous daily work of running a functioning state, remains with a Nawab who has no soldiers, no revenue, and no real power to enforce anything at all. Nobody in London designs this system to protect the people of Bengal. It exists to extract wealth as efficiently as possible, carrying none of the responsibilities that traditionally came with ruling a kingdom. A conquering army, at minimum, has to keep its new subjects productive enough to be worth conquering. A shareholder in London, reading quarterly reports from an office he will never leave, has no such incentive at all. For 5 years, the system works exactly as intended. Silver flows out of Bengal and into company ships bound for London. Dividends rise. Shareholders grow wealthier on land they have never seen, governing people they have never met and never will. Then, in 1769, the monsoon fails. Drought spreads across Bengal. Crops wither in the fields before they can be harvested. Grain reserves, already thin after years of aggressive company taxation, run out fast. By early 1770, people are dying in the streets of Murshidabad and Calcutta, the 2 great cities of a province that, only years earlier, fed half the subcontinent. The company's response is not relief. It is business as usual. Land revenue collection continues at nearly full rate throughout the famine. In some districts, officials desperate to hit their targets actually raise tax demands, regardless of what is happening around them. Company records from this period read like ordinary bookkeeping: ledgers, quotas, percentages, columns of numbers, while people starve to death within walking distance of company warehouses stocked with grain. Merchants and speculators, some with direct company connections, poured rice and drive prices beyond anything ordinary families can afford. There is no organized famine relief. No emergency grain distribution on any meaningful scale. No suspension of taxes for the dying. The machinery built to extract wealth simply keeps extracting, indifferent to whether the people producing that wealth live or die. By the time the famine loosens its grip, roughly a third of Bengal's population is gone. Historians estimate the death toll at approximately 10 million people. Entire villages disappear entirely. Their fields left fallow for a generation because there is no one left alive to farm them. Survivors describe roads littered with corpses for miles, rivers thick with the dead. A silence settling over a landscape that used to hold one of the densest, most prosperous populations on Earth. Families sell their children into servitude in exchange for a single meal. Others simply walk until they collapse, too weak to reach the next village in search of grain that, in most places, no longer exists. Company surgeons stationed in Bengal write private reports describing scenes they struggle to put into words. Mothers dying beside starving infants, roads impossible to travel without stepping over bodies, entire districts falling silent within weeks. These reports rarely reach anyone with the power or the will to act on them. And through all of it, the East India Company's revenue collection barely dips. In London, the numbers arriving from Bengal look almost identical to the numbers from the year before. The famine that kills a third of a province does not meaningfully interrupt the flow of money into shareholder pockets. Some accounts even suggest tax revenue briefly rises, as officials squeeze the shrinking number of survivors harder to compensate for the dead. A handful of company officials write home about the horror they are witnessing. A few even argue for tax relief, for some acknowledgement that the system has failed catastrophically and cost millions of lives. Their letters mostly go unanswered. Men in London more interested in the dividend column file them away instead, unread, uninvestigated, unimportant beside the far more pressing question of quarterly profit. 10 million people were dead, and in London, the East India Company's shareholders were celebrating record dividends. Word was starting to reach Parliament. Someone was finally going to ask how.